all this light? It's very, very nice weather. We've had tons of rain. A lot of sort of one-track people are seeing, some of them for the first time, that the reality is something different than they had known. And a big part of this sort of disclosure stuff, awakening stuff, outside of all the trauma, because there's a lot of trauma. That's what everybody's used to here. But outside of that, once you have done your self-work and your healing, and it is an ongoing process. I don't know that you ever reach an end to that, but it does end up taking a back seat at some point to living creatively and living with the other in mind. And the other is everything else that's outside of your body. At the highest level, the other is also your body. At the center of being, or the 0 point, every single perception is other. Because it's phenomenal, it's passing. But then beyond that perception, the phenomenal and the passing become integrated into the 0 point, which is your present moment, and they become the same thing. So the phenomenal is no longer threatening, and the passing is no longer seen as this unknown boogie monster that is always threatening to leap out and get you. And if you can feel what that means, then it means that you are part and parcel of the whole thing. Still individual, but you're no longer carrying this fight or flight mentality every waking moment because of the numerous complexities out there that have been developed over all of time to infinitely trigger infinite beings. That's the level that it went to, and that's what people deal with. And you can put off self-work as long as you need to. There's not people talking about time, and there's no more time left, or, you know, the thing's gonna happen if you don't hurry up and fix it. It's infinite. So you can sit around and lag around in your rut for however long you want to. Nobody's gonna come and pull you out of it. Like, anybody waiting for a savior, and also waiting for a savior, that can go on forever. Maybe even for some people the savior arrives and then you're saved, and, you know, nobody thinks past that point. Like, once I've been saved from all my bullshit and I'm in heaven, nobody thinks past that. They think, I don't know what they think. Consciousness itself is not ever stagnant, though, so I suppose a more accurate representation of what would happen after you attain utopia is that it remains dynamic. And people would like to say, oh, well, now we've removed the bad parts, and now we're just floating with God. That's, I think, the general conception of heaven. That all of the bad things have been removed and you're floating with God in a puff of white clouds and there's harps playing or something. Anytime something becomes too much same, for the consciousness, it becomes repetitive, it becomes boring. People think they won't get bored in heaven, but they haven't thought that far. They just think, this life sucks ass, this life is terrible, it's horrifying, the boogie monsters have been developed to the maximum capacity. As far as technological weapons, psychological warfare, all of that. And people only focus on, I just need out of this. But they don't generally consider what's going to happen after they get out of this. It's almost like they're wedded to the pain because they're trying to have the cake and eat it type of a thing. They want to have heaven while staying with all the trauma at the same time, because they're used to the trauma and it's comfortable, and they have the promise that they're going to be saved from it, but they don't ever have to actually get saved. They just have to keep pushing it out in the future. It's always a hiding from your own self. That's the game everybody's playing. They're hiding from their own deepest desires for what they would like to have in manifestation. And people are scared to actually realize what they want, because they've seen the sort of wonky way which manifestation happens here. The machine with its gobbling nature pushes people into that mindset, and it's hard to come out of that. And it's also hard to see outside of your constantly shifting and changing and adapting worldviews. Because no matter what worldview you've adapted lately, and we do this numerous times per day, the reality itself, if you can say that, the greater, that which is beyond the manifest, it never fits within the conceptual framework at all. You just can see glimpses of it. Step into your own power and do your thing without fear of repercussion, with the embracing of whatever may come, whether it be utopia or some form of torture or horror or whatever. That's what leads to the greatest amount of personal creativity, and it keeps you open to the cloud, the quantum cloud. Whereas if you stick with any conceptual framework, you're again picking one mote out of an infinite quantum sea of possibility, and you're sticking on that. You're still in the quantum sea, but you're basically pretending that you're not. But the way that I see it happening lately is that the observable phenomena that are spilling out onto this realm are not purely fear-based anymore. Now we can see clouds like like that picture my sister shared with me. It was I still can't remember the word, but like when they do the plate of sand and they hit it with harmonics and it makes a wave pattern in the sand. That was happening in the entire sky in Fresno. Just wave pattern clouds like layered on top of each other, the whole entire sky. And my sister sent me that, and you know, I didn't know exactly what she thought about it, but it came out that she thought it was cool. She's like, wow, that's amazing. And in the old perceptual framework of the realm that the so-called regular people have been sitting in, as far as I know, wouldn't permit. That mind would not permit being able to see that sky without freaking out and conjuring the doomsday things and all of this, because all of the religious ideologies have been harping on doomsday forever. And everybody's waiting, you know, everyone's waiting and waiting and waiting. Like, this is the sign, now the world's gonna blow up. That's been, that sort of mindset has been the standard for a really long time. And what's different now is the changes are creative in nature. There may still be some of the bullshit going on and the negative weather manipulations and things like that, but as you individually, with your own creative powers, with your own individual belongingness, organic, rightful belongingness to the world which you find yourself in, if you energetically move toward, with intent, these manifestations that can come about that are not on the trauma scale, but they're on the creative scale, on the mysterious scale, right? If the collective mind moves gradually in that direction, then at some point everybody just looks around and they're like, oh, okay, so the entire universe has changed. You know, it's nicer now than it was before, and now we can play, right? That's always been my pet peeve of living in a realm where the thing is trying to eat you. It's not playful. It's like, what's the point? Especially if the thing that's eating isn't even conscious. And that's essentially what the ego mind is. The ego mind is the thing that is eating. It's the thing that's always been eating. It's the thing that's responsible for capitalism and consumerism and all the isms and all the bullshit religions and everything. It's always pretending there's some goal, living on image, not on the lived current reality, physical, in your body, moment to moment awareness. It doesn't look at that, doesn't talk about that, always evades that, and it always pushes out into the future. And it must do that because it doesn't exist in the present. That ego mind construct cannot exist in the present, and it dissolves out in the present moment, and it creates all these things, all these image things. And we, as, you know, in whatever realm this is, we played that game out, or whoever played that game out to the utmost possibilities, to the very outer reaches of technological destruction, which culminated in atomic warfare. And there are also the things that do operate on the energetic etheric scale, unbeknownst to your human eyeball, within your own body, that you can't see, and that push and pull you this and that way via feelings. But of course that ties back into the ego self thing, because of outside of the ego self thing, everything's balanced, and all possibilities are always there within every moment. There isn't a goal, there isn't a thing that you're aiming at, although you can put that in there for play, but it's just the ego mindset does not touch that. And the ego mindset's not even interested in interacting with the rest of the playground. Like, everybody else is out there doing their thing, but they're all stuck in there. So it's a very odd situation for people to have gotten into. I was listening to something. We were listening to something recently. I don't know who it was, but they were talking about the family dynamic of narcissists. The ones that live in the group ego mind. And they were talking about how individual family members of this group holds the family image as higher than the actual needs of the actual individuals within the families. And so if an issue comes up, or if somebody bucks the family norms and speaks out about an issue that's important to them personally, if that does not uphold the family image, then that person is ostracized and attacked mindlessly. And it's kind of a culty, groupie, clanny thing, where all of the individual members are miserable unless they're doing the status quo, which is keeping the image of the family, i.e. the projection system as a whole for all of the units, as the highest priority. And it equals in a sort of Stockholm syndrome where everyone's addicted to the trauma, because the trauma in itself is the family. That's what the image is. The image is the trauma, or the trying to escape from the trauma. It's a very weird, subtle, internal mind mechanism. And I'm sure a lot of you have been in those situations or are currently in those situations. And all sorts of rationalizations happen to support being rude, giving insults, anything, being selfish, being egotistical. All of those things are seen, of course not explicitly stated as such, but they are held within that family dynamic as that's just normal. It's how, you know, that's how other thing survives. That's the backwards way in which this realm has been operating in for the whole time. And that equals in misery, so we're hopefully moving out of that into something which takes care of the people rather than throwing hate. And you open yourself back up into the creativity. Because what that mind does is it funnels. Funnel. All creativity gets pushed down because it doesn't, of course, uphold the image, because the image is a static thing. And creativity cannot, by definition, fit within image. Or repetition. Or big business. Monopolies. Let's roll out 1 billion of the same shitty product and make everybody addicted to it. So one particular set of egos at the top of that structure can feel good about protecting their fears. It's a very backward system. It's not good for any of them. It's not good for the top or the bottom or the middle. Anyway, it's a beautiful day. Go out and do something cool. Peace out, people.